All right, so I got this radiator from Alleyworks. You can pause here if you want to look at the detailed specifications, but just want to give you an idea how it came delivered. It came packaged well, box wasn't destroyed. There was significant, padding inside and around the radiator, so nothing was going to get damaged. It was also wrapped in plastic, so in that regard, everything was great. There was no damage. I thoroughly inspected it. No dings, dents, anything like that. So in that regard, everything was perfect. It was, a quick ship. So the shipping was like a week. So that was great. And so no complaints so far. All right, so I got the radiator pulled out. And those are the oil cooler or the power steering cooler tubes to go to that cooler over there. So I'm gonna drop the other one in and determine where I need to cut out. So all of this is gonna have to be cut out because the radiator is significantly wider. And so we're gonna have to cut a big old hole to allow that air to flow through, and then figure out what kind of brackets I'll need to do to get that bolted in there. All right, so I got it just sitting in here. And one thing that you may notice, I opted, instead of going for a center cap, for a side cap. My new overflow tank, I just want shorter tubes and everything, make it a little cleaner, more organized. And I think this just looks a little nicer having this nice flat aluminum surface there. But as you can see, those are the original bolting points for the original radiator. And you can see where it'll need to be tied in now. And so those are gonna have to be completely cut out. And now that I have it in here, I'm hoping that once it's all cut out, that there's only gonna be maybe 3/4, maybe an inch of a spacer that I'll need to do. So I may be able to just do spacers versus brackets and bolt that sucker in there. Same thing on the other side. And even just sitting in here, so when these are cut out, this radiator will sit closer. So now that I think about it, the spacer and or bracket is gonna have to be large enough to keep it flush with this cross support. But even with that not cut out and it's sitting out farther than it would be, I have plenty of space between the fans and all the pulleys. And that's one of the big considerations you have to do when you get a new radiator, to make sure the overall width doesn't impede into the engine pulleys. This is a 3-core. It's like 25 inches, 25 1/4 across, if I remember correctly. Each fan is 750 CFM. And then when that's all cut out, we'll have tons of airflow coming through here. All right, so I got the first side cut out. There's a piece. I'm gonna probably have to take out more, but you can see compared to the other side how much that opens that up. Another consideration with the radiator is the height. So I put some spacers down here, just a couple 1/4 3/8 strips of plywood, stacked them up. And when I lowered the hood, the radiator cap and the hood were resting on each other. Not much, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, I don't know. But now I'm just gonna take out one, do it again, and see what we got. All right, I got it all cut out. Got it finished. Got it filed down, knocked off all the burrs. But that's a much wider opening. That's gonna be great. I decided not to cut the bottom part down because to go down where that silver mark is, it actually would have to cut through all of the pinch welds right through the center of it. I don't want to deal with that, and that's something I can always do down the road if I need to. So about a 3/8 of an inch is not going to be exposed on the very bottom, but that's okay. Everything else is fully exposed all around the sides and the top. So I just got this sitting in here, but just trying to illustrate just how large that is. Got that all opened up. Horns in the way on that side, but you get the idea. All right, so today I'm working on seeing what kind of bracket I can come up with for the radiator. So here's the thing. So this is what I started with. I'm gonna fashion this out of wood first and see if it even works. And then if so, then I will duplicate it in aluminum. But what I'm attempting to do here is, this is where the bracket would be. From the top here to the bottom, it's not a 90-degree angle. So I've got 1.5 inches up here. That is from this point here down to the bottom. So, and the other reason I'm doing this too is because if I do just spacers or just brackets, then there's going to be a huge air gap, and I want to try to funnel the air in as much as possible through the radiator. So I'm trying to eliminate those air gaps all in the same process. So this was a 3/4 by 1.5 inch piece of wood that I've ripped down to 1 inch, so 1.5 inches to 1 inch. And then of course I marked my measurements for the holes and drilled them accordingly. So this is going to go on this side, but just to give you an idea, I'm gonna throw it on the back side, and so you can see I'm lining it up with the very top there, just so everything's kind of flush, and then down there. And I made a discovery. Of course, nobody can make anything, high quality anymore these days, but these hole positions are different on this side. You can see that without me even having to point it out at all. So I started on this side, so I'm going to continue on this side. And there's enough meat over here. When I get to it, I'll make these the same and then re-drill here and down here. But can't make anything easy. Can't make anything same or symmetrical. There's always got to be an issue. But that's where I'm going with this. And then on the bottom, you can see there's a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a bend there. So I'm gonna get the measurements of that now, and I'm going to hone that section out so this lays flush against this, and then just naturally humps over that little bend right there. And then whatever I don't need on the bottom, I will cut that off as needed. All right, this might be a little difficult because I'm holding the radiator with one hand and videoing with the other, but here, let me do this. I'm gonna try this. Here we go. So that's what we're looking at. So down here at the bend, I was gonna try and get fancy and curve it and match the shape, but nah. So I just went with a straight, angle on there. And as you can see, and I don't know if you can see my bolt holes. Yeah, there we go. But now it's the exact length of this aluminum flange here from top to bottom. Now obviously the sheet metal on the car is not like perfectly flat, so there is a little bit of a gap in here, but it'll tighten up and close the gap a little bit once it's bolted in, but I'm pretty happy with this so far. So now the trick is seeing if I flip it, will match the other side or how far off it is. So as you can see on the other side, for the most part, it's gonna work just fine. The only issue is the bend, the crease is in a different spot. It's farther down on this side. But the overall shape works perfectly. So now I just got to create a second one where that notch out is just a little bit further down. All right, so I got the driver's side mocked up. I got the new position of the notch out there. And as you can see, that's gonna work, I think, just fantastic. So now I got to position my new holes on the metal here and get those drilled and honed out. And then that's kind of it. Then I have to figure out how I'm going to refashion this in aluminum. So these are my final mocked up templates for my brackets that I'm going to make out of aluminum. Went ahead and ordered my aluminum bar, and I pretty much have decided I am just going to cut them by hand, which is going to take some work, but that's what I'm going to try to do. All right, bracket number 1, passenger side, almost done. There you go. And of course, I'll do the holes last, but there you have it. Bracket number 1. Cutting aluminum is nasty business, let me tell you. On to the next. All right, so I have them both cut out, driver and passenger. So I just got them sitting in there. Have this all centered up, leveled up. See if I can show this side here. And then take a look in there. Let's see if I can. think this is gonna work out pretty awesome. As long as I don't screw up drilling the holes, we'll be good to go. All right, so I got the brackets all done. Got them drilled out. Gonna be using 5/16 all grade A bolts. Overkill, don't care, because I like grade A. So far, the brackets are a perfect fit. All the holes, everything lined up, just nice and flush with the top. And same with the other side. Now, the next question is, will everything line up to those holes that I drilled out? So I already did a test fit of the radiator. I did have to oblong a couple holes on the far side over there a little bit, but it slid right in. So I cleaned up the whole front end and touched up with paint. And just let that dry up, and then I'll put it in. So I got the radiator installed, and it came out great. I got obviously more things to do here, but the radiator itself is in place. Look how massive that is. Now, the brackets worked perfectly. So most people, they just take a long bolt and they span that gap, right? All they do is they span that gap. And so it's completely, open. I did not want that. I need to replace the thermostat to 160 degree because the shut off on this is 165 on the old radiator here. So we need that changed out. I got new hoses. So this one's gonna work. I'm gonna reuse the lower one because I cannot find a replacement for it. So once I replace the thermostat, then I'll put the hoses on. And then the last thing to do is to wire up the fans. All right, thermostat replaced, new temperature sensor, and I went ahead and replaced this hose since I was in there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get the alternator back in place. All right, she's back up and running again. Everything's working great. The only thing I still have to do is hook up the fans, but the radiator is in. I have replumbed. Let's see if I can get a picture of it. I've replumbed my power steering lines. Filled up my power steering fluid, checked the oil. Everything is working good. Time to get to work on hooking up the fans. So I got one fan hooked up, all tested, everything works. It comes on, tested it at temperature. I got all this extra here because I'm gonna reroute it and try to make it nice and pretty, clean it up. I stopped on that because this came. This is my Mishimoto overflow tank. And I got this installed here. Now I'm working on the lines, but now it really like it. What I did here is because, first let me just back up. I didn't want it angled back against the inner well there. I wanted it to be all level in all directions. So I used some bushings, cut them down to size. I angled the bushings to meet the angle of the inner well there, and bolted it in. So what I'm gonna do is I already got my overflow tube there hooked up. As usual, the size of the tube that comes off the radiator isn't the size of the tube that comes off the tank. So I'm going to route this over here, and I'm gonna angle it down, and it's gonna go right out the bottom out here. I got the tube already ran, and then the other tube, I'm going to use these angles again to connect. I'm gonna get a reducer to connect to this one, and then there you have it. It's gonna look nice and clean, all nice and pretty, but it really ties in well with the radiator. So I'll get that finalized, and then back on to connecting the other fan. So everything's all done. I've taken the car out twice now. Last weekend, it was kind of a cool day, like 65. And I drove it around about a half hour. Couldn't get the temperature gauge to go more than like 25, 30%. Not a single leak, not a single drip. Today I just took it out again. It's about 72. Not very hot, but you know, warm day. Drove it straight for 45 minutes. I couldn't get that temperature gauge, even going through the gears, more than just a tick over halfway on the gauge. And again, not a single drip, not a single leak anywhere. So I'm thrilled. It all worked out perfectly. And I gotta say, I love those brackets in there.